Welcome to another episode of Foundational Foundry, the tutorial series from the Foundry Roundtable. I'm your host, Green Dragoon, and with me are my co-hosts, Drogon1701,
Hello.
Mark Hockman,
Hey.
and Duncan Idaho.
Hardly.
We've been in a series of episodes showing the process of taking a Foundry mission from inception to publish, and showing every step and wart along the way. So far, we've put together 2 maps, and we're working on our third, a crash starship interior. In the last episode, we laid out all the assets for this map, and in this episode, we'll be hooking up the objectives and starting any interactions we want. So let's get started. Okay, so before we go too far, mission text for ship interior. Any ideas?
It smells like cheese in here. We should investigate.
Have you
Maybe
ever
they've
made a mission text like that?
Let's see. I'm just thinking of all possibilities. No.
Ooh, I got it. There you go. I worked in the word potato.
Oh, okay, so what do we got?
I just mission text is baked potato. I probably spelled potato wrong.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Because the ship is like a baked potato.
Exactly.
It's golden
In your
delicious on
mind?
the inside.
There you go. I worked the word potato in there somehow.
Yes, that's 2 Foundry missions with the word potato.
All right, so build our text. All right, so science stuff is to say
Captain, the Orions have boarded the potato, I mean the USS Foundation.
okay. The nice thing is that despite it's a kill objective, I can name it Rescue Survivors to make it appear like the act you're actually doing is saving them, not just killing the Orions.
Well, actually, so some of the cryptic missions do that too. They tell you to rescue people who are being held hostage by shooting the people who are holding them hostage.
It's not genocide, it's saving people. All right, so talking to the captain. The name for the captain. Vacation.
Krug.
Vacation named
Hmm.
Krug.
Captain Furball.
Captain
Actually,
Tittles.
I said Krug.
But you guys own cats, so what are your cats' names?
What is your
Okay,
what
so
is the mythical Duncan Idaho's cat?
okay, so this isn't one of my cats. It's in the family. So it's not AEI Judge Cat or other cat. But we do have a cat called Trumpy. Not after the Republican presidential candidate, but after the monster from Pod People, which is a Mystery Science
yeah.
3000
Well, I
movie.
think we've established both Drogon and I are both MST3K fans, so we know
This is
Trumpy
going out
well.
in public though. So we didn't name it after Donald Trump, but Trumpy from the classic Mystery Science Theater episode. Because the
Yes.
cat, it looks very much like the cat the small little boy who befriended the alien monster had.
And for anyone who doesn't know, Trumpy is Odd People is
Trumpy
a
can do
bad
magic.
movie. It's a bad movie that very much tried to be an ET type movie and
Yeah,
failed miserably.
except it was E.T., but there was the adult monster, which ended up killing lots of people.
I always wonder if it was one movie and then they tried to make it a different movie when ET came
Possibly.
out.
They can just see it. I think, was it dubbed? I'm not sure at this point if it was actually filmed in English.
So
Many of
some
those
of those
old,
movies, I think the writers basically tried to combine two genres, and it came out strangely.
Well, in any case, we do have a name for our captain now. So what is he going to say here?
Captain Trumpy.
You're a sight for sore eyes. I thought he'd have to go down with the ship.
Yeah, see me, I'm not the person to ask for cat names because in real life I tend to go with names that are either incredibly stupid or, well, kind of like naming things cat number 5. Not numbered, mind you, but things equally boring.
I had dogs growing up, not cats, but my parents sort of inadvertently chose geeky names for things, even though they're not particularly geeks themselves. Our first dog was named Strider after Aragorn from Lord of the Rings, and our next dog was named E.T.
Hmm.
Well, instead of
I
standing for
currently
extraterrestrial, it was meant extra tiny.
I currently have a brown tabby that I most often refer to as Cat Thing. It's
See,
a very strange in the head cat that, well, it's also not very smart. I don't understand what's up with it.
Yeah, the two that I have, AEI Judge Cat is named Pumpkin, and my other cat is named Simon, both of which I actually didn't come up with the names myself. It's just what they came with, and I didn't feel it was ethical to rename the animal. Like, it's got a name already. Why do I need to make it a new name?
Well, my sister Abigail made an amusing observation that she had this little dog that she called Lucky, and they found this dog as a stray that was actually a reasonably nice dog, so they decided to keep it as a pet. That apparently had been named by its former owner Lucky because it came whenever she called her other dog, and it had a collar that had a name tag on it that said Lucky. Its new owner decided to call it Roscoe after the guy in when was that show? I forget. The TV show with Bo Duke. I don't remember what its name was called. Oh well.
Well, in this particular episode of Foundational Foundry, our listeners are getting an idea of what it's like to listen to our regular show, which is we go off on a lot of tangents.
Yeah.
We are a bunch of geeks at heart.
Yes.
Now, I'm actually questioning Captain Trumpy because I've got another. Well, my brother's cat is named Mr. Kitty, and Captain Mr. Kitty just has a good ring to it.
I don't know. I was kind of taking a shine to Captain Pumpkin.
Needs to be a black cat though, because it's the analog to AEI Judge Cat. Well, this is AEI Judge Cat. It's the analog to AEI Mission Cat, which shows up in Apex. It's also worth noting for these contact dialogues where we're going over and talking to an individual NPC. For whatever reason or another, I mean, just depending on if you need to use this as a resource for a mission, if you want to, say, have a conversation with changing contacts or have someone else talking, when you get to a particular NPC, you can actually change the costume to anything else on the list from that original contact. by default, it's set to whatever NPC you have to work with. That's the sort of default costume or contact costume, however that's phrased. But you can certainly play around with it. So, for example, you can have this as a Mako cat, Captain Trumpy, and then you can jump over to one of the kittens we have in the mission list.
I've actually tinkered with that in multiple different ways in the various missions I've done, because I haven't on several occasions done a really long string of dialogues and had multiple characters pop up as a sort of like a multi-way conversation.
That's all my dialogues.
That's one thing I've done. Then for another one, I had a character who he was using a personal hollow emitter to disguise his appearance. When you see him on the map, yeah, he's actually disguising himself as one of the bigger, nastier looking Undine. Then when you walk up and talk to him, you see him using a different appearance. And then, you know, I think I only had him use like 2 or 3 different appearances. Another one I've done was having, you're talking to someone and then they show you a picture of a different person. So I did the picture as a dialogue box where the person that you're actually talking to is talking about this third person, and you see the picture of the third person.
You guys are talking. I'm just adding fires to
Hmm.
Oh, fire.
Have you used all of the fire props at least 3 times yet?
Uh-huh.
What about Firelight? You got some of that going?
Firelight doesn't work really well in interior.
Oh, that's right, because it's that custom lighting source.
Okay, so let's see. Trying to keep this simple. Kurgan.
Or fire.
Okay, so what am... Kick out these just because...
Keeping it simple is always good advice.
Okay, so... Thing hooked up, unlike the last map. Console to destroy the core. Alright, so let's run through the sequence of events. Okay, you start out here. You have 3 objectives to kill 3 groups. Things will happen when kill each one, so we're have our Starfleet officers here, and we want them to say something whenever they're saved, after you've killed the Orions, of course. But we're actually going to use something new. We're going to use a map dialog. So this is a dialog tree we can actually place right on the map and have it triggered after a state transition.
Yeah, well, when I first started in the Foundry, I attempted to use map dialogues for all dialogues just because that was the kind of dialogue that I discovered first. So it was the first one I noticed you could use, so it was the first one I started working with. Granted, that was a poor choice on my part, but, well, you know, I didn't realize that until a while later.
One downside of the map dialogues is I got to manually add in all the context. Show up as...
One useful thing to note about on-map dialogue versus mission dialogue is that you can associate state transitions in other objects on the map in the dialogue options in this type of tree. If you have mission dialogue, it's basically inaccessible. So if you want to say, spawn in a bunch of dudes, if you taunt a particular potentate, you can't do that through a mission dialogue tree because that just won't be available to that list. What you do is that you create an on-map dialogue or optional dialogue with the character, and then that's what creates the basically selectable options for the uh, dialogue prompt reached state transition or trigger.
So in this case, I'm doing having the dialogue appear after a component complete. And in this case, I want that to be when you defeat the Orions. So I'm actually using the Orions themselves as the target of the component complete. So they will be counted as complete when they're defeated.
Also, one last note on this dialogue pop-up. It will pop up after the red alert has ended for that player's combat phase. So normally when you go into combat, you have that red alert, which in space means that you can't use full impulse. And the major effect in the Foundry is that any pop-up dialogue basically waits until you're out of combat. So it's one thing to keep in mind is that if you have combat and you want to have a bunch of things, for each one of these, the pop-up to happen afterwards, you do want to make sure they're spaced out. So you're not able to complete 2 before the first dialogue window is popped up. Because then I think you'll either get one then the other, or at least one, and then the other one's just going to be sort of a button available for the player to press if they happen to notice it.
All right, so the reason I'm utilizing map dialogues in this case is because the people you rescue, I want to disappear after you've finished talking to them. So what happens is you defeat the Orions. That triggers the map dialogue. Once you can close that, that's going to set off another component complete. And then I'm going to set it right to this dialogue tree. So the disappearance of this Starfield Ensign here will occur once this tree is done. So it kind of sets off a series of events that progresses until completed.
One thing that I've noted that you can do with this that's kind of fun is that you can have these pop up just based on invisible move to location markers. So, you have somebody walking down the middle of a hallway going towards an actual objective, and then you have this invisible objective where it'll trigger a dialogue, and then the dialogue comes up, and you talk about something for a little bit, maybe like it's a clue to solving a puzzle or a random bit of story. Cryptic actually does it in some of their missions, but with cryptic missions, it'll happen as those little like fly-in dialogue bubbles that you see on the left side of the screen, but we can't do those.
Okay. So we got triggers. So dialogue tree by the completion of Bob here. Starfleet Ensign disappears when dialogue tree is. And then that just leaves this last group. which I don't have to set up anything fancy for because we're going to talk to the captain right afterwards. But we have the fires and the explosion that we want to set off. So those are actually going to be triggered by one of the objectives. Destroy the core. Okay. All right. So you guys think I can think of anything I'm missing?
Nope.
Why don't you give it a run through and find out?
Okay. So I went with the Chronos Under Siege backdrop just because it has like a lot of fog and stuff. I'm hoping it kind of gives a dusky, damaged look. Not a ship in good shape.
It's not ship shape, you mean?
Not even Bristol fashion. Oh, that worked beautifully.
Well, I have to say, the current look of this does kind of look like the inside of a war zone, which it should.
And like I said, I mean, if time were infinite, I would be like, all the quarters would be like littered with debris and things would be falling apart.
Well, that's one of those things where once you put the basic framework of the mission together, you can go back and redecorate to add more props.
Saving crewmen like a boss. I don't even need a phaser.
You've just got the power to kill enemies with your mind.
I just punch them to death.
No.
That
As he was
too.
kung fu fighting.
Okay, so I forgot there was a few more crates in here. Might have to adjust my captain and
You know, that's actually one of the things that I don't miss with the old skill tree is that at one point in time there was actually a ground combat skill for unarmed combat. Worst ground skill ever.
But on the
All
plus side, all
right.
your triggers and things seem to be working.
Yeah. Hey, how about that? That's a definitely on fire computer core.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I think the only thing I want to change is the placement of this console and the captain. So it's
You know, I think that object you use for the computer core is actually meant to be a water filtration device.
whatever. It's technicky.
Yeah. Right.
That's the beauty of the Foundry is we often use objects as something other than what they are intended to look like.
It's
It
a.
definitely looks like it could be a computer. So hey,
Yeah.
It's an early interocitor.
There you go. What's your new goal? Is to work an interocitor into the Foundry mission?
The thing is, I could easily.
In some of the Cardassian missions, it's used as part of an irrigation system.
I think that mission is no longer in the game. I might be wrong about that.
Oh, you mean
Seeds
the
of Descent.
seeds of...
Yeah, that one got axed.
Yeah.
Okay, so we could totally end the mission right there. Or we can have a final boss fight.
Final boss fight against Bluegill.
For no particular reason.
We've disturbed one of their nests by the
You have
ship
to write more dialogue to explain it.
We've landed on a bluegill nest.
Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't we cover how to effectively end a mission in our next segment?
Well, actually, I mean,
We'll pick up right from where we left off here, I think.
no, I mean, I can end the mission right now. And it saves us from having to stretch this out into yet another episode.
No, I think it's valuable, and then we can go into how to publish and how to find your mission once it's. So I think one more episode on this is.
All right, fair enough. You have convinced me.
We can record that at a later date. So thanks everyone for joining us to hopefully learn a few things about working on your very first mission or your 21st if you're a veteran. There's always new things for veterans to learn. For now, we will end this episode of Foundational Foundry right here.
All right. We will say good night.
Good night.
Right, good.